Okay, Helen has preached half the sermon, so I get the other half. How many of you got your license at about the age of 16? Most of you, okay. What was it like the first time that your parents gave you the keys to the car and said, "We'll see you at 10," or "We'll see you at midnight"? What did you feel? Everybody's smiling. Liberated, Kathy says. Yeah, that's quite a sensation. In fact, there are psychologists that talk about a passage or a rite that we ought to have with our children when they get to be about 16 or 17, when they receive their keys, because that's probably a more important time than some of the other passages that we celebrate. But that being the case, my story was I had driven since I was 10 because I was on a farm, and you just had to be able to operate implements and cars and trucks. And so when I went to take my test, I suppose I'd gone through driver's education, and I suppose I thought I was being overly confident, but I knew I could pass the test. And I got to an intersection, started to turn left, and there was a woman standing there, and she had the right of way, and she motioned me on. So I just turned the corner and kept driving. And the officer flunked me on my test. And the next day I went back with my dad and I passed the test. But I'll never forget, once I got my license, Dad giving me the keys to the '59 Buick and saying, "Have a good time." Have a good time. I can also remember having my dad take the keys back from the '59 Buick, having had a good time. That's a thrill. It's a thrill to get the keys for the first time, isn't it? Jesus is helping his disciples. And he's gotten away from the crowds with his friends, and he's helping them to differentiate, to separate out who he is from others in his day. Who do you say that I am? Who is the Son of Man? He asks his disciples. And, you know, are they prophets? Am I a prophet? Am I a religious man? Am I whatever? Who do you say that I am? Asked Jesus. And then rather than telling his disciples, which preachers were notorious for doing, we just tell you what you ought to know, okay? Rather than telling them, he asks them, who do you think I am? And they've watched him, and they've walked with him, they've eaten with him, they've seen him heal, they've seen him pacify thousands of people with food and drink and compassion and just acts of justice. Who do you say that I am? You know, I get to this place and I think, gosh, you want to sing, "They'll know you're Christians by your love, your love." You know, they'll know you're Jesus, the Christ, by your love. And then he speaks specifically to Peter. And you know Peter, poor Peter, who ends up a leader. Peter, who do you say that I am? Now, you have to understand, this isn't Peter with the crowds, because Peter with the crowds would be trying to please everybody in the boat, right? "Oh, I don't know. This is Peter apart. This is Peter with the disciples. This is Peter struggling with himself. And what he says is more than a statement of awe. Much more. I think it's a statement of personal commitment to this one that he has walked with and been a part of this one's life for this time, these many months. And it's the key that opens the gates of heaven for Peter. It's the key. It's not, who do the scriptures say that I am? It's not, who do you think I might be, which is the way I might approach the question. It's ultimately a personal question asked of each one of us. Us, just like Peter. Who do you say that I am? What's Peter say? Oh, this is typical of Peter. You're the Christ. You're the Christ. You're the Son of the living God. You're not a great man. You're not a leading prophet. You're not beginning a movement. You're not beginning a religion. Jesus, you are the Christ. God's special creation. Unique to all of creation. And you and I and all Christians are asked to differentiate Jesus from the crowds. And the crowds, I think, in our case, just as in that day, were the culture in which they lived. By saying that Jesus is Messiah, the Christ, they, the disciples, must give up the whole idea that is being generated by so many people that this one is to be the conqueror. This is the one who is going to overcome Rome. No. This one is to embrace others as a servant. The Christ of culture comes, as I said, to overcome empire. The Christ of God comes to suffer and to die and to identify with his humanity. Then Jesus blesses Peter and calls him the rock. Upon this rock I will build my church. Now some people interpret this in all kinds of ways, you know. That's why you have St. Peter's Basilica. But for many translators, it's the confession that is that rock. You are the Christ, Son of God. Either way, though, Peter will become the authoritative voice in the life of the church, in the assembly of those who are called out, just like today. And you showed up. Now, in making this claim, I think there are several small keys that you and I may want to reflect upon in terms of our personal walk, our following of Jesus. And some may apply and some may not. How many of you have ever watched someone usually on television news or somewhere, receive the keys to the city? Now, when, let's say, I give Henry the keys to the city, what is it I'm giving him? Bob? A symbol? Okay, it's a symbol of? What honor, reception, very good. Trust, thank you, we're getting there. It's an old idea. City-states, you know, to receive this, the key to the city is lots of things, are lots of things. It's an old term. It's giving the fullness of the city. You see, most people used to live in agrarian life. They were out in the sticks, the boonies. When you got the key to the city, man, you had something. You had abundant life. You had its energy and all that the city could give you. You're no longer rural. You've got the whole thing. The energy of a city. And the key to heaven is about that same kind of abundance. When we receive the key, just as Peter does, we receive the abundance of God that overflows, that is shaken down and continues to overflow in our personal lives, in our collective life as church, in the life of the world, and we must see that with eyes of faith. Now, when somebody gives you the key to the car, I've talked about this earlier, what are they giving you? You know, this is the scariest moment in a parent's life, right? The scariest moment. I know some of you haven't given your keys away yet. You're giving them trouble, is that what you said? Trust. No, we are giving them trouble too. Yeah, when we give the keys to our automobile to somebody, our children usually, we're giving them a trust that they're not going to go out and hurt themselves or somebody else in that vehicle. But not only that is, we're giving them responsibility. In trusting them, we're saying to them, we feel like you're a responsible enough person that you can handle this and the decisions that come with it. When Peter receives the keys to the kingdom of heaven, Jesus is saying, I entrust you with the kingdom. Imagine that. Now, I've shifted my sermon around since the first time. The key, there are days when I'm sure Jesus, after this, wanted to say, Peter, I want the keys back. We do that with our kids. Give me the keys back. You've messed up way too many times. And then there are other times, and I'm sure this was true near the end, when Peter was wanting to say, hey, Jesus, I'd love to give you the keys back. Can't handle them anymore. Don't want the responsibility. Don't want the trust. Okay? The keys are those of trust and responsibility to the kingdom of heaven. One of the most important field trips I took in high school was to a penal institution up near Chicago. And I hadn't been in a jail before. And I'll never forget, how many of you have been in jail several times? Or, oh, a handful. That's good. Joe, I knew you would have been. Joe Lee's, Anyway, when you go into a large penal institution and they tell you, stand with your back against the wall so somebody can't grab you by the throat. And when you go through these doors, you walk this way. And they open that first door and it goes chink, and 3 locks open up that way. And then they go crunch and you're in. And then they go chink and you're locked in. And you go to the next door and you hear this over and over and over as you walk through that institution. And that has a profound impact on you as a kid. I'll tell you that. And I think it probably has a profound impact on somebody who has been incarcerated for a period of time when they hear those doors locking and unlocking because of a key when they enter the world again and the light of day flows down upon them. And they feel the liberation that must come with that. Part of this kingdom of heaven, and the key that is given to Peter is that liberation that comes only to people of faith. Oh, I get so sorry and when I hear people pray about their sins over and over and over again. God forgave you. Continues to forgive you. The key is yours. Live like it. Keys to the kingdom of heaven. The entrance into abundant living, into trust and relationship of responsibility, into a life that is liberated to be all that we can be as human beings. All because Peter had the audacity to confess that Jesus is Christ, Son of the living God. The same confession that you and I made. May God walk with us as we take ownership of those keys, even in times when we want to give them back. Jesus isn't going to take it. Even in times when we wish that maybe we had not made the confession. May we continue to press into our faith and live the life that Christ has given us. Let us pray.